Hi guys again. So this is Dr. Ernst von Schwarz, and we talked in prior videos a little bit about how to go into medicine and how to go through medical school, how to interview and so on, how to get the positions. So today I want to talk a little bit about research, because research is essential. I have probably on a weekly basis people interviewing with me because they might want to go into medical school, or if they're in medical school already, they have to apply for residency or for fellowship or for positions later. So one way which is really essential and quintessential actually is to do research, to be involved in research activities. And if you do that, it always will help you and it will open doors later on. If I think about my own career path, the research I did in the basic experimental labs at the Max Planck Institute in Germany, for example, opened the doors for me to come to America, because the guy I worked with was well known and we published quite a lot of papers. So that's how it goes. So research is very, very important. So what does that mean really? So it means you need to be involved in someone who does research, ideally a group, and be part of a team. So people might say, well, I can do research all on my own. Yeah, in part you can, but it's always better to get like a guidance through a teamwork. So if we start someone in a research project, for example, I tell everybody, the first thing is you have to put some time aside. So if you want to do a research project, and if you're serious of doing it, then I expect that you finish it. And usually I don't start anything which cannot be finished within 1 year. So you have to commit yourself for a 1-year activity. That doesn't mean you have to come to the office or the lab or the hospital every single day for a year, not at all. We have people abroad. I have right now a student in Australia, for example, works with us remotely. But what you have to do is you have to make a commitment that for a 1-year period, you should spend on average 4 hours a week on that particular project in order to get something out of it. So, and everybody I tell that, oh, 4 hours a week, that's nothing, I can do it. Well, not so easy. 4 hours a week is something, it's a must. It has to be a commitment. And if you go 3 months on vacation, that accumulates and you never can go back to that time. So you have to be consistent, and 4 hours a week has to be spent on that particular project. By reading, by writing, by exploring, by doing clinical studies, whatever it is, 4 hours a week for a 1-year period. So why do you want to do that? You want to do that not only to get the exposure to research, how it's done, but especially you want something out of it at the end. And what you want out of it is a publication. You want to have your name on a scientific publication. Ideally, more than one. Because keep in mind, for the applications later, if I read through applications for residency or fellowship, the personal letters, they all sound great. The recommendation letters, they all sound fantastic. The objective thing I can look at is what is a publication list? How many abstracts, how many papers does the candidate have published? And nobody expects that you are, of course, a world-class scientist when you apply. But if you had some exposure to research, that helps to open the doors, and the more, the better. So you want to get your name on papers, on scientific publications, peer-reviewed scientific publications, which everybody can find. So if I Google your name or look on PubMed, for example, I want to find you if you tell me you have done research. If I don't find your name on the NIH database of scientific publications, PubMed, for example, then it's not true what you're telling me. Then you have not published anything, okay? So you want to publish in peer-reviewed accredited scientific journals, and in order to do so, you have to do the research first and then publish the data. And if you work in a team, then you will be a co-author on your colleagues' papers. And at one time, of course, you want to have your own project where you are the number one author, the first author on that particular scientific publication, and the others will be the co-authors. So it goes both ways, of course. So how to start? There's different ways, of course. I'm not saying what I tell you is the only way, but I think it's a way it works. So if I start with a new student or resident, a new project, I say, well, first of all, think about a niche, a topic related to medicine, for example, which is not all over the place already, but pick something which is not that well known. And then, after you have done that, then you ask one particular question. And that question has to be very simple. And it has to be answered just with yes or no. For example, does someone with heart failure have pain? Yes or no? It's a very simple question. And it's a real question. We did that a couple of years ago. And it's simple because I personally love the KISS technique. You know what that is? KISS? Keep it simple, stupid. That's the best approach to start a research project, because it gets complicated throughout the whole thing anyhow. And when you do the analysis, it gets more complicated. When you have to interpret your data, it gets more complicated. When you write it up and get the reviews, get more complicated. So it has to be very simple. Keep it simple, stupid at the beginning. Ask a question. So years ago, for example, as I mentioned, we had a group of students and we asked the simple question, do heart failure patients have pain? And if you look in the medical textbooks here, it's not a symptom of heart failure to have pain. Oftentimes people with a heart attack have pain, but not heart failure patients. So what we did was a very simple thing. We looked at the database of 2,000 patients who were admitted to a major hospital with pain, with heart failure, And interestingly, every single patient who comes to an ER has like a smiley face. You know, the nurses put the smiley face. It's a pain scale from 0 to 10. 10 be the worst pain they ever had, and 0 is basically no pain, and grades intermittently. So it turned out that almost 80% of all patients with heart failure demonstrated pain, which was not common knowledge. We published that. We made actually 3-4 papers out of this simple idea, because the next step was then not only to see that they have pain, but also to address it. And if you could address the pain issues, then the hospital stay was reduced, meaning the hospital costs were reduced, meaning the readmission rate was reduced. So out of that simple question, we created 3-4 scientific papers over a period of 1 year. So the candidates had 3-4 publications with their name on it, and relatively easy got into residency after that. And these were medical students, you know, just started, not some established researchers. So again, you ask a simple question and you have a working hypothesis. So, do heart failure patients have pain? Yes or no? That's your simple question. Or does medication A reduce the incidence of irregularities in the heart? Yes or no? Something like that. Very simple. And then most important is you create a study design, and that doesn't always have to be prospective and randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled. It could do a retrospective analysis, for example. Doesn't matter what it is. I usually start, before I start with a project like that, I tell the candidates, so the first thing is you do is you collect all the literature on that particular topic, for example, pain and heart failure, and you write it together. You write it in a way of a review article. Because number one, you have to read the literature anyhow if you want to do a study and write a paper. Number two, don't waste your time just reading the literature. Read it and write a review article on it, and then submit it for publication. At the time you do your prospective study, for example, you have already a review article published on the topic, which makes it easier then to publish the study. Got it? So out of one simple question, you could write a review article, you could write a retrospective analysis on that question, and you could do a prospective study. For any scientific paper, except reviews or viewpoints or editorials, you have to have an IRB in place. So if you use any patient data, you need approval usually by a local institutional review board in order to use this data and to make sure that patients' privacy, etc. is well protected. So usually the large academic institution like Cedars-Sinai, they have their own IRB, UCLA have their own IRB, but even in smaller institutions, there's independent IRBs. So every study you want to do, if you want to publish it, and you want to publish it, believe me, you have to make sure you have an IRB. If you don't have an IRB, or in Europe an Ethics Commission approval, then no international journal will accept your data for publication. That's something, I was just running into an issue like this where someone did a great study in Europe, but they failed to have an IRB, they failed to have informed consent. So that's a big no-no. I mean, you can't publish something like this, and it never was published except in a local newspaper, but not in a scientific journal. So make your plans, prepare an IRB, which is a form thing, of course. It takes a while to fill out all the forms, but it's all online, of course, nowadays. It costs a certain fee, which is usually covered through the funds for any study, if there's funds. And make sure you get the IRB approval before you start, because that's a must. And then basically, most important is be very, very systematic. Do not deviate from your study protocol. If you say you measure blood pressure on day 1 and on day 5 and day 10, make sure it's not day 1, day 7 and 11, but 1, 5 and 10. Any deviation from the protocol is bad. You want to stick to the protocol. Even if you in between figure out, well, maybe we should do it at another date earlier. Well, don't do it because you have your study protocol. Do it in the second study you do. But stick to your study protocol as long as, of course, there's no safety issues. So stick to your study protocol and be very systematic. And most important besides that is document everything. Everything, every encounter, for example, every potential side effect, if it's with patients or so, has to be documented with date and time and in all details. And you have to keep all those documents for potential later reviews. You might know that people published papers 10 years ago, and then after 10 years, some researchers found flaws and requested to see the original data. That happens not often, but sometimes, and you better have all those things ready and store them in a safe place that you always can go back in case someone questions something. So have the original data always well documented and saved. So, and if you go that approach, very simple approach, be systematic, get an IRB, read the whole thing, write a review first. Easily, within a 1-year period, if you stick to one topic, you can have a handful of publications on that particular topic. One warning I want to say is, I had years ago a colleague of mine wanted to do a study with us on an electrical device for the heart, for example. He had published another paper with a gynecologist, he had published a paper with a surgeon and one with an oncologist. So he wanted to get more publications. Well, good, but bad. That looks very bad. Everybody who sees that knows that this is someone who is not serious. He just wants to grab a little co-authorship here and a little there and a little there. But he's not really seriously interested in one topic. So to switch around between different faculties and topics is not well regarded. Just the opposite. Pick one topic, like I said, a niche topic, and stick to that and do some work in that particular topic. But it has to be something which is of interest and is not all over the place already. Years ago, I had another student, and I asked him, just pick something in the cardiovascular arena which is not well known. So he came back a few days ago and told me, well, what about if I work on endothelial dysfunction? I thought, what the heck? Come on, endothelial dysfunction, there's hundreds of thousands of papers. Who are you that you think you can be an expert? I mean, there's way too much published already. There's way too much knowledge. You never even have the time to read everything which has been published already. That's not a niche topic. You want to grab something where you don't have thousands of publications, something which is a little bit out of the box thinking, because then you can be innovative. You can be the first in something. So be wise and discuss it with your supervisors or your professors, whoever those are, what topic would make sense, and then work it through. Good luck, guys.